So in the beginning of January, we showed you a lot of beautiful flowers around the grove. A lot of mango trees were just in full bloom, fresh panicles. It just looks so promising. We were thinking this is going to be just a tremendous year. Now, I still don't know how the year is going to play out as far as how many varieties are going to produce fruit this year and how much fruit we'll get. We have over 300 trees, so there's a lot of potential because of different locations are sometimes better than others. And the stage of growth is also important as far as, how well the tree survives, different weather events. Unfortunately, we did have some weather that was not great for flowers, and so like what used to be gorgeous flowers, we have a lot of very not gorgeous, very dead panicles. This is still a little bit flexible, but there are no flowers that have any chance of producing fruit on this. Now on this whole tree, which this is Rosa, and Rosa is known for being very productive and also a very early variety, we do have a couple of fruit. This one here, that's bigger than an inch, and it's not looking like it's gonna make it. There's just a lot of problems on that fruit. Its little buddy over here is looking better, but still don't know how this is going to play out. Possibly we'll get, like a full-size fruit from that. And then just like barely, this is just the next little part of the tree over, and we have some really awful looking young fruit. Of course, those are not going to grow anymore. We've got sort of the same thing happening here. This is not a black-skinned mango, at least it's not supposed to be. Rosa the variety is named for the color of the fruit, and this is not, has nothing to do with red, it's just black. So anyway, that's what's happening with Rosa. But we thought we'd hit a few other spots around the grove to see what else is happening. So this tree is looking fabulous. It's actually maybe 35 feet away from Rosa, due north, and look at all the wonderful bloom. Of course, the timing of the bloom is different from the Rosa, and so that has something to do with the difference in the look of the bloom. But this is just looking very healthy for the most part. Some of the panicles do have parts that are a problem. For instance, we have some nice flowers here and here, but then that was a good example of one that wasn't going to last. That is just a part of the panicle that was not going to ever produce fruit. But yeah, this is a Valkyrie tree, and it's looking like we'll have a good Valkyrie crop. It's too early to tell, but fingers are crossed on that one. Right next door, this one, we've got a lot of panicles and not much in the way of healthy looking fruit. Here's a little fruit, but it's not going to make it. We see the black spots on it already. So not sure how this one's going to fare. Some of these, for instance, this here is a pretty significant branch tip. It's pretty thick and everything, and it has not yet produced a bloom. So it looks like practically everything else on this tree has bloomed, but I'm guessing that this is going to bloom in the next few weeks, and it will be a healthy bloom as long as the weather cooperates. So this is sort of an odd looking tree. We've got this rather major trunk and then sort of branches going all over the place. this is actually a top work project, and the original tree was Valencia Pride, and there's still quite a bit of Valencia Pride on the tree, but I've also added orange sherbet to it. So we have some bloom. This is, I think this is Valencia Pride here, and this particular panicle has nothing that I see that is alive on it. This one has some fresh flowers here, tiny green fruit there, so possibly that will make some, some fruit. Not sure about that because it's pretty tiny. So it seems that the lower down on the branches, the closer it is to the ground, the worse that the panicles have fared. I do see one of the panicles up high that has just been wiped out, actually a few, but then all these that are closer to the ground seem to be really hit. We've got some emerging bloom here. You see that actually there's probably a few panicles. This is the major one, but then there's one over here, and I'm not sure if it's green or not underneath. No, it's not. So we have this main one and then this one. So that might have better conditions for when it does push out some flowers. But anyway, this one on the back side here, I mean, location is important. Not only the location of the tree, but the location of the branch on the tree. And on this side, the north side of this tree, we have a few healthy panicles. These two, we've got this one and one right in the center of the tree. So it looks like we might get some fruit from this tree. It's just not looking like it will be loaded. So here's a fun tree. This is Jahanger, and look at all the lovely bloom. It's just looking very healthy, and we've got some flies who are pollinating. Got one right over here. I don't want to scare it away, but that's where it is. Whoops, there it goes. And just really, really healthy bloom. So we do have a little bit of problems on the tip of this panicle, but looks like we might get some fruit from other parts of that panicle. So far, Jahanger's looking pretty good. Right next door is Juliet, and it's not looking quite as good as Jahanger, but top of the tree looking better than the sides and the lower parts. So it's hard to say if it's the location or the timing of the bloom, because it looks like the top of the tree might have bloomed later than the side, but I can't say for sure because we didn't take copious notes on it. And here we have some young fruit. Not sure if any of it is going to hold on because a lot of it has it's not looking too great, at least on this panicle. See what we have up here. And not looking fabulous, but I'm guessing that some of the higher up fruit will actually make it. We'll just have to see. So I'm seeing a lot of young fruit right in this area, and it's really nice that all of these panicles have what look like really healthy green stems. Like, this is something that can support fruit. So over here, this is what's not good news. When you see panicles like this, this is just black all the way through. Let's see if it's still a little bit flexible, so it's harder to, but yeah, that is, that should be green in there, and it is not. So when your panicles look like this, there is no hope for any fruit to develop this year on this panicle. But what can happen, depending on the timing of the season and such, is that these areas that have no hope for producing fruit, the panicles that look like they're on their way out, or maybe they're already completely dead. Sometimes, again, depending on the weather, this area of the tree might bloom again. So I'm hoping that that's the case for a lot of our trees, but at this point, it's just a hope. So this tree is just looking gorgeous. It's just got a lot of really nice looking panicles. They're fairly fresh, and so that's when they look their best. What happens, of course, is that there are many hundreds of flowers on each panicle, and no, one panicle cannot support many hundreds of fruit. Basically it's usually like 2 fruit. And so what happens is a lot of the flowers are, might produce very small fruit, but the tree just doesn't support all of those situations. So don't get concerned if, what used to look like this gorgeous flowering panicle, suddenly starts looking like it's on its way out. As long as the stems look healthy to the panicle, it's not bad news. You can get some little areas, like this one that just popped right off. That's part of a panicle that would never produce fruit. But what happens is there's hundreds of flowers on a panicle, just a huge amount, and the tree will support like 1 or 2 fruit for each panicle. And so don't get concerned if suddenly you have flowers that don't look great, or that you just have a few fruit here and there. That's just what happens with mangoes. They make a whole lot of tiny fruit, but then the tree doesn't support them all. So here's a tree with a different story. Got a lot of leaves on the top, not many flowers at all, but we can look at these flowers down here. There's 4 panicles that have a slightly different story. Each one has a little bit of different situation. This is fairly fresh. This is very healthy bloom. It's very compressed, like this panicle's like out in the world, and this is just very much of a cluster. But there's all sorts of fruit, tiny fruit, that are looking healthy. They're just green. I don't see black on the fruit at all. And then we have, of course, some other emerging bloom there. Right over here with this one, we've got a lot of bloom that's emerging on the tips, and on the lower branches of this panicle, we've got a lot of dead flowers. Those are past their peak, you would say, but you can see that this branch is supporting a lot of little fruit right now. So it's not going to be able to support this much fruit for long, but it looks like the stem, the main stem of the panicle, is very healthy. And so don't get concerned when you see all these dead flowers that might be around a green fruit, because those are just flowers that cannot be supported, or the fruit from them would not have been able to be supported by the plant. So got that original cluster, we've got the more typical panicle, and then down here we have looks like a panicle that might have emerged a little bit before this one, might be a little bit older, and we have some fruit that looks healthy and some that looks like like, let's see, yeah, it has, well, it's so tiny, it's hard to show, but there is some black on that little fruit, so it was never going to grow up to be a big mango. So there's another story about this tree that I should mention. We've got actually 2 varieties on it, and so putting a new variety on sometimes like reduces the total amount of flowering for the tree for the first year, and so that's the primary reason why the taller branches and a lot of the side branches do not have flowers, is that it's a recent top work. So we might get a little bit flowers a little bit later in the season, like within the next month, but it might be that we have to wait until next year to get a good crop of fruit from this tree. So here's something interesting. I noticed that something weird was going on right here, and what it is this is mixed bloom that is very healthy, and on the same branch tip we have 2 other panicles. One of them is really on its way out. That one is very dead, and this one has got the red stem still, but it doesn't look like anything's going to develop on that. So it's sort of weird to have this wonderful healthy mixed bloom, but then the normal bloom is not producing anything. But it's just been unusual weather, and so you get some weird situations in that. So this is sort of a famous tree. It's been starring in many videos in the past. It's Dwarf Hawaiian, and Dwarf Hawaiian is just a really nice variety, very productive. It's very early season fruit, and almost everybody really likes it. It's probably a cross between Julian Turpentine. It's just got a rich flavor, and I was looking forward to having a good crop this next year. It bloomed all over the place a while ago, and then the weather happened. And while I do see a few fruit on this tree, normally at this time of the season it would just be loaded with small fruit. Right up here, there's a good example of some healthy young fruit, and there are a few other areas, but basically just there's tons and tons of panicles that have no chance of producing fruit. It's amazing how many panicles there are like this. I would say 90% of the tree has panicles that are not going to produce fruit. It seems like certain areas of the tree have more fruit than others, but no place on the trees has a lot. So with all this dead bloom, there are a few places that I see possibly bloom that might develop, but nothing compared to a normal year. The only glimmer of hope I have for this tree is that it might be possible that it blooms again, because this is a variety that really likes to produce a lot of fruit. And right now I am not seeing much evidence of a good crop this year for Dwarf Hawaiian. We have its little sister tree right over here, and it's basically the same story. We've got just lots and lots of panicles that are not going to be producing fruit. So let's just hope that the plants in both trees get their act together and bloom again. It won't be, if they do bloom again, the fruit will not be ready at the normal time of year. It'll be a little bit later in the season, but hey, better late than never. Just all sorts of stuff here. Oh, look at all that. Okay, so here's one more depressing area. We have a lot of Angie here that looks like nothing is going to happen for this first bloom. We are hoping for another bloom, but can't say if it's going to happen or not. We just have I would say this is a location and variety situation where we have, this is Phoenix over here, and it's not looking good at all either. So this is the south side of this tree, and it apparently did not fare well. We've just got a lot of bloom all over the place, and it looks like everything's either dead bloom or dying bloom. Again, what we're going to hope for is to have a second bloom on these varieties that have such a dismal look at the moment, and so we're hoping for that. But seeing as we just showed you a bunch of depressing stuff, I wanted to end on a more happy note. We have a few trees in this area that are doing very nicely, not completely covered with happiness, but we have some nice healthy panicles here and in the back, which is sort of difficult to see. This is actually Phoenix, and the Phoenix on the big tree that we just looked at was not doing too well, and this Phoenix is looking pretty good. And then we'll just, oh, this is not looking good, unfortunately. But then we go over here, and it's looking a little bit better. Actually, as I get close to it, it's not so uplifting. There's a lot of these panicles that are looking like they're not going to produce any fruit at all. So, sorry, I meant to end on a happy note, but this is not the happy note. So I'm going to just take a little step over here, and this at least is looking good at the moment. We have younger bloom that's looking very nice. Here's another panicle here. So this particular side of this particular branch is looking good. So it's a mixed report on the bloom. We're hoping that we have a good year mango-wise, but a lot of the indicators on some of the varieties are not looking too great. As I've mentioned before, we have over 300 trees in the grove, and so even though we have some sad situations on many of the trees, we do have more trees, and hopefully they will produce some nice fruit.